Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. You are tuning in to another Casual Convo Friday. My name is Tisha. I'm one of the co-hosts along with, guess who's back? Nate Flood out of Rome, Georgia. Big thanks again to Gary Rogers out of Florida for joining me the last couple of weeks as Nate's fill-in. And today we have a special guest. We have TJ Kastning. He is the owner of the Ambassador Search Group out of Idaho. And today we're talking about the onboarding process. And I like what TJ has to offer because he's also talking about how there's a cultural onboarding process. So if you have a company, you're employing individuals, this is one you don't want to miss. If you have questions, make sure to drop them in the comments, chat with us, catch the replay. We all go back through and look at those comments too so we can reply back. But TJ, so great to have you. And Nate, good to have you back.
I know.
Nate's gonna get started. Yeah, but thanks for coming back, TJ. I know the first time we had you on, we had some technical stuff. Nate and I still haven't yet figured out our stuff, so now we're good. Now we're all good.
It's the story of my life too.
I haven't experienced any
story of my life. Yeah, Nate never experiences technical difficulties. I will say though, Nate, that the last 3 weeks it was perfect. No technical difficulties. I was in the driver's seat. All good.
So you're saying it was my fault?
No, not at all. Not at all. All right, let's get this Casual Convo Friday on the road. Nate, what's that first question for TJ?
You know, TJ, the big thing about onboarding is a lot of times, people find it's difficult to do, for numerous amounts of reasons. But I would just like to hear from you. Why is it so hard for people to tackle onboarding? Like, why is that such a difficult task for people to accomplish?
So there's two different types of onboarding, and we got to define what we're talking about here, because what can be classically defined as onboarding is some of the technical stuff, right? You need to set up an email address and business cards and give them a door key, and all that stuff is fairly straightforward. It still takes discipline, but it can be accomplished with a checklist, given it to somebody who's responsible, and they can get that done. The harder part, and probably the more critical part to success, is cultural onboarding. And that's a big ambiguous term that changes with every with every company, right? So every company's got a dramatically different culture. And when I can say as a recruiter, nobody wants to join a company with bad culture, but there isn't one kind of good culture out there. And even in one industry with companies doing similar work, you're going to see a variety of cultures. So if you're one of those companies, getting somebody into your company and getting them aligned with your cultural values is going to be really important for them feeling comfortable and ultimately getting successful as quick as possible, reaching that break-even point where they've gone from being a net loss to a net positive. And that is really difficult because it's ambiguous. What does it mean to get somebody culturally aligned with your company, right? It starts in the interview process, and obviously doesn't really ever stop, right? Because culture never stops evolving. You could think of culture like a chemical mixture, and every employee that you add to a company is going to change that chemical composition to some degree, right? So how do they do that? What are the expectations? What are the behaviors? What's the purpose of the organization? A lot of these things can't be done without a fair bit of pre-thought, right? Spending some time to, sit down and define, well, what is our purpose? When somebody comes in here, what mission are they joining? What shared beliefs do we have? What are our core values? What do we expect people to live by and operate by? And then you've got behaviors, right? You go into two different companies doing the same type of work, and you'll see different behaviors. And those behaviors are cultural cues as well, because they're choices that are made by employees guided by those same purpose and values that we just talked about. So these things become layers, right? And it's complicated. But I want to encourage people who are trying to figure out this whole onboarding question. One, it's really dependent on you and you defining what do we want people to culturally align with. How's that for an answer?
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. And that kind of leads us into the next question I got for you. And I'm getting back in the swing of things. Been out for a few weeks here, so let me dust off my old question asking self here. What makes, with all that being said, and with it being so broad and so kind of open-ended and ongoing, what makes a good actual onboarding system, right? Because one of the keys to a typical onboarding system, like if you're dealing with technical stuff like I do more often than not, is, you get that whole like checklist pipeline function that you take people through. But with the stuff that you're talking about with functional onboarding, it's a little bit harder to quantify the results of that, if you will, and kind of do that whole check the box. So explain to me how you work those systems in for companies.
Yeah, so number one, the checklist is super important, right? Because a company who doesn't onboard somebody technically well is going to look incompetent. And it happens a fair bit. I mean, these are easy balls to drop, right? You get somebody started and you haven't onboarded somebody in a while, and it's easy to forget to get the business cards ordered. But it's like any relationship, the beginning matters a lot, right? First impressions matter. So get the technical onboarding down, right? Build a checklist, put somebody responsible in charge of it, make that happen in a disciplined manner. The second part, how do we know if we're doing it well? It's are people coming up to speed quickly? Are they well aligned? So 3 months into their tenure, are we discovering surprises? Are they discovering surprises, right? And a lot of this goes back to doing your due diligence properly and setting expectations in the interview process. But that process continues in the onboarding process, and that should be a pretty active conversation between that person's manager and the person also contributing to their questions, what they need to onboard properly, because it's in their best interest as well. I wouldn't say it's a one-party process.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So when you're talking about touching base some more on actually building that system, do you use a lot of or have you seen in your experience and stuff, have you seen a lot of people using forms and things like that to fill out expectations? I know in the Army what we used to do this wasn't quite onboarding, but I've adapted this to work for our onboarding, is we had forms that kind of followed you out for every single month with expectations of what had to happen each month, because it's kind of hard to onboard everything at one time. You have to kind of take them on a little journey. And so what we've done a lot with the companies is setting up almost like counseling packets throughout the process, to where it's like, hey, this month we did this, we took care of this, this is how it went, things like that. And then you lay out the expectations for the next month, so on and so forth. Have you seen a lot of that being done, and has it been successful? Have you seen something that's a little bit better? How have people been developing these processes that you've seen so far?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of forms used, very common. And the contingent item on their success is how is that form followed up on? Mm-hmm. Forms can be really rote. It can be basically a shortcut, right, to doing the job, the relationship building job that somebody in a leadership position needs to take. So if that form is being filled out and then filed, and then, oh, we did our onboarding, right? That's not such a great process. But, a lot of people they're verbal thinkers, right? And some they think in a written style, right? They think a little bit more slowly, and if you give them time to prepare their thoughts, they can put out some very good ideas, and then you follow up on that material at the actual onboarding meeting. It could be an employee review, right? Say a lot of companies, they have people write out answered prepared questions, and then that provides a little bit of context to the conversation, so that the employee is not going into that conversation unprepared for what's going to happen. Same thing with onboarding, right? So to simply answer your question, forms are great. Make sure it's not a replacement for somebody who cares about them and is going to follow up and make sure that the plan happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know for us, the form is just more of a, hey, it's a check the box kind of follow along to make sure that the whether it's a client being onboarded or whether it's an employee being onboarded, because we have to do both. It's just to make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to. It's just a way of saying, hey, I know if I look through, these two people that are responsible for doing this have sat down, had these conversations, had these training sessions and things like that, or whatever the case may be, so that when they are through the onboarding process, or at least as they continue to move forward in it, we know where they're at, and so we can set those appropriate expectations of, hey, if they haven't been shown how the peer evals go or something like that, we can't expect them to do one just yet. Little things like that always come up. With that being said, though,
Can I say one more thing on that, Nate?
yeah, go ahead.
Forms are great for what you just described, helping you follow a discipline system. But one other encouragement I'd give is while you follow a discipline system, recognize these are people, and especially for onboarding, forms don't think. Forms
Sure.
don't react and respond. And while I definitely advocate the use of forms as sort of a baseline, companies should be very willing to go off the form as well to, help somebody be successful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
You were
I
gonna
think
say.
of the forms or whatever type of technology you're using for it and stuff. I think of it more just a backstop, just to like make sure that things are happening. But ultimately, it does come down to, like you said, those conversations, those coaching sessions, those training sessions, and things like that, where people are taking them under their wing and showing them, hey, look, this is how this person works. This is how this person works. This person's a little bit more structured. This one's a little bit more haphazard, but you know what? They get things done. It kind of helping them go through that stuff. Obviously, it's just real hard to document that, but at the same time, we do need to be able to track some stuff. So when you're helping clients and things, can you walk us through the process of how you help them develop a system? Let's say they don't really have one in place; they've just been kind of whatever. How do you help them develop an appropriate system that works for them?
So that's different in every case because every company is different. You've got the technical side, which is straightforward, but where a lot of challenge is going back to the basics, really, which is, why did I start this business? What am I as the owner of this firm very passionate about accomplishing out there? And if the answer is making money, well, you're not going to get them on board with making you more money as the mission of the company, right? The tenure is going to be short. They're going to leave, and eventually they're going to go start their own business to make themselves more money. There needs to be a compelling mission, a reason to join this firm. And so the cultural onboarding really gets built off of, why are we here? What's our purpose? And we're providing, ultimately some kind of a solution, whether it's a product or a service to the market. And that's the initial lens that this whole onboarding process gets seen through, because everything beyond that purpose statement has to be seen as supporting that purpose statement, right? This is how you build cohesive cultures. So for any company, the question starts at the beginning. Why'd you start the company? From there, you've got a series of cultural questions. First, you have to define your culture in order to onboard somebody to emulate your culture, to understand and reflect your culture, right? So further on, you've got values. So here's our mission. Well, here's our set of values for accomplishing our mission, right? You might see things like customer service or integrity, or there's a large number of ways that you can put together a value statement. But it needs to be real. And a lot of companies, they put this together. It's a question of like, hey, what should our values be? But it really is, it needs to be a more thoughtful process. And I should say it's a long-term process. I would say even cultural values can evolve over decades, right? So what are those values? And then the question is, if this is the value, well, then how are we evaluating our adherence to these values and then communicating these values? If I've got a new employee, how are we adjusting them to doing business our way? I mean, that's a very open-ended question, right? This is all a very open-ended process. So depending on what your business is, that could look very different. But if you're, say, running an auto mechanic shop and one of your values is speed, right? How are we communicating to people, maybe initially in the interview process and then further on in the onboarding process, what kind of expectations we have around speed because of our mission to provide quality mechanic services quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We can keep going, but there's other items that make up culture, things like how do we recognize good behavior, bad behavior. Those are all very culturally dependent. Certain rituals that a company may have, outings that they do together, meetings, typical meetings that they have, understanding how people relate to each other in those meetings. So a lot of what this onboarding process is setting the expectations of here's how you're successful in this organization. Because you may have come from another competing organization and have been successful in that organization. But a lot of that success is really contingent upon that cultural alignment. I've seen good employees come from good companies, go to another good company, not be successful because of the misalignment in the expectations around culture.
Oh yeah, I think we all have seen that, definitely. I've also seen. I mean, we've just here at our company, we've had our fair share of people leave very big, high-paying jobs from big corporate entities because, when they were there, they kind of got siloed and they didn't get much expansion in their own skills and knowledge and stuff like that. They kind of just got put on a project. That's what they did for 5-6 years, and they're like, hey, I want to go out and learn. So with that being said, what are some things that both of y'all have seen in terms of cultural experiences that help people stick around, that help, because obviously, you got your money chasers for sure. But how have y'all seen companies manage to maintain one, expectations, but number two, like give people that extra little oomph to make them want to be a part of their team?
Mm-hmm. I have an example of this that I'm working with a woman in an event industry, and she was saying that she was offered another position, higher pay, but it's kind of like the trade-off, right? Like, what are you giving up if you go work for another company where maybe there is not that cultural alignment, where the organization that you're with, maybe they're not paying you as much, but they have some different benefits. Like she was telling me, she's like, I don't have to sacrifice like my family. I have my own hours. I can work from home. So it's kind of like you have to look at the trade-off of, am I going to a company and am I just going to be working nonstop like crazy and I'm not going to be appreciated, or do I stay where I'm at? So that's where I would look at it. Like, am I being appreciated? Do I fit in with this company? And sometimes you're right, it's not going to be a good fit. You have to really make that decision too. But I like what TJ, I like what both of you were saying too, that because I've sat through those performance reviews where they come in with the checklist and it's like, check, check, check. Okay, we're done. And I'm like, but I didn't even get to say anything. And if you're saying, TJ, go in with, yes, you have the form to guide you, but you really should be caring about that individual too, because that's where you're going to see the turnover. That's where you're going to see people say, they don't even care about me. They're not taking in any of my considerations or my thoughts or my ideas. So why am I still here? Great way for people to jump ship if they don't feel appreciated or valued, or have not been communicated what those values are, or that mission that you were sharing, TJ. When companies bring you on, that is the first thing they should be doing. And I've given speeches to different organizations where the employees are like, I have no idea. Like, that's a question I always ask. What are the core values? What's the mission of this organization? And it's crickets, which means that upper management hasn't yet even told the staff what they should be doing and what that vision is and what that mission is and how these values align with that. It just blows my mind, because I'm like, how are we failing so much at communication? When you're onboarding people, that's the first thing you should be doing with them, is the communication process. And we have a question too from Gary. TJ, I'd like for you to chime in on that, and then we'll ask Gary's question. Oh, I guess we're asking Gary's question. Okay. Or maybe we're not, because Nate took it off the screen. Okay, TJ, go ahead. I would like for you to chime in on what Nate just asked, and then we'll bring Gary's question back in.
Yeah, so I'll just build off your point, because again, absolutely the right direction, Tisha. It's really about symbiotic relationship, because none of us are the whole unit, right? I need my employees, and my employees need me. We all need each other to do our jobs, and that relationship is different with each person. So what does that mean? Certain employees come to work for different reasons, and if an employer doesn't know what those reasons are, doesn't know how to retain them, maybe from the employee's own mouth, that's going to be a challenging situation to eventually not be surprised in, right? And surprises are never good in an employment situation. Nobody wants to find out they lost their job. Nobody wants to find out that a key employee is leaving. And so treating these relationships as sacred, as treasures is really important. And staying in, I mean, just knowing people, right? People want to be known. People want to matter, right? They want to matter to their mission, to the customers. They want to matter to each other, and you need to know how to help them matter as an employer. And I'd also put responsibility for this on an employee too, right? Because this isn't just a one-way street. If an employee expects to come into our organization and be treated like God's gift to that organization, they better be God's gift to that organization. They better be performing and contributing culturally in a substantial way. So symbiosis, work together, make it work for everybody.
I like what you said. You better be God's gift. If you come in here thinking you're God's gift to the organization, you better damn well be God's gift to that organization. Right. Oh my gosh. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. So Gary had this question. Nate, if you want to put it back on the screen.
Am I good?
You're good. You're good. And hello to Becky Williams, who's tuning in. If you could ask just one question when interviewing someone for a job, what would it be? Good question, Gary.
One question, man. That's a tough one. That's a little bit like asking, like, you know, if you're trying to figure out the truth of a matter with a child, what's the one question you'd ask? Usually you cross-examine, right? So a good interview requires asking questions from different angles, sometimes cross-referencing the same issue. But if you only had one question,
Stumped.
I don't know. Honestly, that's really, really tough. I mean, if you gave me 5 questions, okay, can I change it to 5 questions? I can't answer one. I think that's impossible.
We'll give you 5 questions. Go for it, TJ. Gary, you're in for a treat. He's giving you 5.
Yeah. So I want to know about what that person wants for their future. And that's a really open-ended question. I love open-ended questions. No closed-ended questions. No yes or no. What do you want for your future? And I want to see where they go with that, right? And so asking follow-up questions is really important. And if you get non-answers, meaning it's a lightweight answer or not really substantive in information, ask the question again, right? A lot of people don't recognize they're giving non-answers, and sometimes they need to be prompted to realize, like, you're really serious about getting the information from that question. So one question, what do they want for their future? Second question, where do they feel that they've been a effective communicator and contributor in the past? Who have been their mentors? Tell me about those relationships. I want to know about a time, maybe not a time, but a very difficult situation in which they failed, which there was a lesson learned. And I want something real. I want a substantive failure. A lot of people give cheap answers to that question. And what you're listening for is humility. You're listening for, can they relate an embarrassing situation as a human, and can they articulate, what they learned and how they moved forward from that. So is that 4? I think I gave 4.
That's 4.
Yeah, so the fifth one is, what would they change in their current situation? If they were in charge, obviously they're leaving a company for some reason, right? What would they change if they were in charge, right? A lot of times, criticism is a lot easier to give than constructive feedback. And so I really want to know how much of this person is invested in providing a solution to a problem or escaping the problem. How did I do?
You did good. I have a question for you, TJ. This was, I saw this, I think, on a LinkedIn post where someone asked, what do you want for your future? Like you asked one of these questions, what does your future hold? What do you want for your future? And the person said, I want your job. Like he was talking to like the CEO and he's like, I want your job. I want to be you. How do you feel about that? If someone comes in and they're just boldly saying, I want your job, that's it. Like that's plain and simple. Like what's your stance on that? Would you be like, okay. Do you feel that person is now a threat? Or do you feel that that person is someone that you could mentor? Like, I'm just curious. That was a question that I saw that I was like, I'm interested to find out about that.
Yeah, I love that answer. It's a bold answer. It comes with a lot of commitment. But, I mean, if you think about it this way, there's a good saying I like out there, which is we're all promoted by the people under us. Meaning if you have a mindset of elevating, promoting, mentoring the people who work for you and with you, then that is going to provide you opportunity to move into something else, right? Like I like companies who have a model of you can get promoted when you bring somebody up to do your job at your level, right? Where you have a model of continual investment in people. So if somebody comes in and they say, bold statement like that, I want your job, great. Here's what you've got to do. They just signed up for the gauntlet, right? Here's all the things you have to be responsible for. I expect you're going to blow me away, and you can have my job. And because they take over my job, I'm going to do something different, right? So I'm going to elevate myself in that process. And there's a perfect symbiotic relationship there. They want my job, they can have it.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect answer, actually. The more I think about it, it's like, well, great. Then that means I can retire early and go sit on a beach somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, if you really find somebody who can operate at that level, that's what we're all looking for. I mean, the personal challenge, it's like, maybe the person needs to learn how to communicate that slightly more diplomatically. But look, ambition is ambition. And I think good business owners leverage ambition to force people to perform in ways that they might not have if they weren't ambitious. It's a tool.
Very good. Nate, a little quiet over there. I know you're on mute. Do you have some more questions? More questions for TJ? I know this has been very eye-opening. I like it. I like this conversation.
Why interrupt a man when he's spitting out good knowledge, So we got a couple minutes left, TJ, and we just want to give you a chance to do some shameless plugging here. If you got anything you want to promote, if you want to talk about your business, anything like that, have at it. You got a little under 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I'm not necessarily here to promote myself, but I do want to kind of contribute to the broader execution of good business with people. We're really passionate about business owners creating better businesses. That's why we are recruiters. That's our mission. I've seen firsthand what a business looks like that is ambitiously run, but without a very conscientious approach to the people side of things. And I saw a lot of the energy that was put into that business, in a sense, wasted because the people side of it wasn't there, right? There was higher turnover, and it was sad. And so what we're interested in is helping business owners grow their firms mindfully and carefully with engaged people so that the entire organization can enjoy more success. When good people work together, you have really good results. So our motto is we find good people, we connect them, and we do it fast. So if somebody's interested in talking about that, I'm of course always interested in talking to folks who need good recruiting services, but we're also just interested in helping people think through this stuff. You know, hiring authorities, they may not need a recruiter, but we spend our entire day interviewing people and trying to help people be successful in their careers and their businesses. So anything we can do to contribute to the broader industry is a win for us.
That's perfect. Hey, TJ, you also have an interview guide that I know you were going to share as well. So we'll put that in the comments. But this is an interview tip sheet, questions to ask?
Yeah, that's right. So one-page tip sheet for interviewers on just some tips on what you should be looking for and thinking about throughout the.
Perfect. All right.
So
well, I know that's our time. So thank you everyone for tuning into Casual Convo Friday. TJ, always a pleasure having you on, and thanks for all of those nuggets of wisdom that you shared. I'm interested in this topic, not that I am employing people, but I just love to be able to know this. I can also share it with others out there. Nate, was this helpful for you? For your onboarding process?
Everything's always helpful. I'm constantly learning. As a matter of fact, that would be my one question. You know what I mean? My one question is what's the best thing you've ever learned? That answers a lot for me, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, we'll add that. We'll add that to TJ's as number 6. What's the best thing you've ever learned? All right. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. And thanks to everybody for tuning in on the live as well as watching the replay. TJ will be clipping some of this segment and sharing it out there so that we can keep promoting you and what you're about. And we'll also add that interview guide. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you back next Friday with Misty Cortez. She is joining us for next Casual Convo Friday. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.